Welcome to tutorial 10, and this is the introduction to loops. So we're not going to go over loops in this tutorial. I'm just going to explain a few things about loops. So loops take a thing called an incrementer. And before we go over what incrementer is, I'm just going to comment these out, these three things that I want to go over, and then we will go over what they are for a brief moment. So there's different types of loops. There's a for loop, while loop, do while loop, and I'll explain these really fast. So we're not going to go over them again in this tutorial. I just want to go over and explain them really quick, what each one is and what they're used for. So the incrementer, let's make a comment, changes the value of a variable by a certain number. We'll say number or formula. And that's what the incrementer does. It changes the value of a variable by a certain number or a certain formula. Well, what the incrementer is a part of is a loop. So you want an incrementer in any loop, because an incrementer is what's eventually going to stop a condition in a loop from becoming, or it's going to allow the condition in a loop to become false so that the loop can stop running. So what a loop is, a for loop, a while loop, and a do while loop, is they will run a bit of code until a condition becomes false. So you'll see that later on. Now what a for loop does is it takes in three different parameters. In every for loop, you want to declare these three, at least two of the three parameters, and we'll go over it really fast. So the first parameter you're going to need is the declaration of the variable, or call the variable, which means the variable can already be made, and that's the first step, or the first parameter in every for loop. So next we have the condition that becomes false, and that's simply what we can explain it as for now. And then 3, the last parameter, is the parameter that we really don't need to put in as a parameter, but we can put it in as the set in the parameter set. So in for, as you can imagine, you have one parameter here, a comma, another parameter, and then another comma and another parameter. So there's 3 parameters inside here. So the third parameter you don't need to put in, but that is the incrementer itself. And the incrementer can be ran inside of the body of the for loop, and in some of the other loops it can be ran in the body as well. So what we're going to move on to now is the while loop. And the while loop can simply be explained as it tests a condition that's inside the parameters, because when you declare a while loop, it's like this, with a set of parameters. Test the condition, and while that condition is true, it runs the code in the body. Now, while loop doesn't require a 3 different parameters like a for loop, but all it requires is something like an if statement. So while x is less than y, then we're going to run this body of code that's inside these braces. Now, that's when we get to incrementers. Inside the body, you want to declare an incrementer. So inside the body of a while loop, you want to put an incrementer. And that's going to change the value of x so that instead of being less than y, it'll eventually be greater than y. So that's how incrementers work within for and while loops. The do while loop is basically the same thing as the while loop with a little twist. So the do while loop is basically says do and then the body, so this specific code inside the body until the function, or no, until the condition inside the while loop becomes false. But a do while loop, since we start with do, and remember the compiler reads from top to bottom, and then we write while after with the parameters, with our instructions in here, we are saying do this set of code at least one time. So the while loop isn't even considered until after the instructions are in here are ran one time, and that's why the do while loop is used. So it'll automatically run that code once, and then after that it says while, and then it tests that condition, and then however many more times it needs to run that program until that condition becomes false. And again, you put the incrementer inside of the do body. So we'll go over all this in more depth in the next few tutorials, but this is just an introduction, again, to loops, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next tutorials. I hope this helped. If you have any questions, leave it in the comment section, and I will get back to you and try to fix or help you out with any problems that you are having. But thank you guys for watching, and have a great day.